Hey guys. So, a question that I commonly get is how much do software engineers actually make? The numbers that commonly get thrown around typically differ quite a bit. A lot of folks are making sub 100K. Sometimes I'll hear people saying that they make around 70, 80K, while other times I'll hear people saying that they make 200 or even 300K. So, how do we nail down how much the average software engineer actually makes? Well, we're going to be taking a look at this article here by wearedevelopers.com. And here they go into a bit of an analysis of how much a software engineer makes based on a bunch of factors. And the article starts off by mentioning that the values that are stated for software engineering salaries typically vary a lot. The reasons that they cite for this is that aggregator sites don't consider that software engineering salaries are trimodal or that FANG companies pay differently than non tech companies. The article also goes on to state that there are other factors such as oversaturation, lower offers, and layoffs that also play a part in this average salary statistic. So, just to backtrack a little bit, what's a FANG company? FANG stands for Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. So, of course, this is referring to the top five or amongst the top software companies in the world. So, here the article starts getting into some numbers. They mention that according to Glassdoor, the average software engineering salary in the United States sits around 140,000, with this figure given on April 2024. They also go on to mention that quote unquote official sources state that average salaries are more in the 124K range. A junior engineer expects to make 88K, while a senior engineer will expect to make around 162. Now, this is where things start getting interesting. So, they go on to mention that these salaries actually vary very greatly based on your location in the United States, in addition to the company that you work for. So, here they go on to state that the US cities that typically pay the highest salaries are typically found in Los Angeles, New York City, Boston, and San Francisco, typically greater metropolitan areas. And of course, the reason for this is that they're also higher cost of living areas. The article also goes on to hint at the fact that some folks actually have the luxury of working for one of these urban companies while living in a different location with a cheaper cost of living. Here, the article provides us with a table listing a bunch of average salaries for software engineers based on the location of the company. So, taking a look here, the number one position is held by Los Angeles, where the average salary is around 218K. This is significantly higher than what the national average salary for software engineers in the United States, a whopping 38% higher salary. Naturally, the areas around LA, Silicon Valley, and the Bay Area have a cost of living that is also significantly higher than the average cost of living in the United States. But the statistic is staggering, especially considering the fact that it's not even close to the number two position, which is held by New York City, which offers average salary of 181,000. This is still greater than the national average, but it's not as staggering as a jump as LA, as you can see here, with a whopping 38% here. But the interesting part about all this is that even if you were to earn an average that was dead on equal to the national average of around 135K, that's still quite the respectable salary to have if you're living in the United States. In most areas, you'll find yourself actually above the median household income, which usually translates into the ability to work and live quite comfortably, regardless of the working status of your spouse. So, next, the article goes on to paint a picture of what salaries are going to look like in the EU. And they also start off by mentioning that the figures can vary drastically in the EU as well. So, here they go on to mention that there are testimonials of senior developers making around 60K in some areas of Europe, while others are making around 35K euros in their junior positions in the UK. And of course, they're comparing that with the average entry level salary in the United States, which is around 80K. Now, of course, they're highlighting the discrepancy here in that how a junior developer in the US can make almost as much or even potentially more than a senior developer in the EU. But of course, you have to take into consideration the fact that cost of living also varies very greatly. And typically, the cost of living in Europe is quite less than the cost of living in the United States. They also go on to state that there are some outliers in Europe, such as Switzerland, which typically offer much higher salaries than the average salaries you would find across the rest of Europe. So this next table actually gives us an idea of what the salary ranges are by country in Europe. So the leader of the pack here, of course, is Switzerland, which offers a staggering 111K to 216K euro salary range. And of course, you have countries like Denmark and Germany that offer around 73K to 108K or 76K to around 98K, respectively. Now, again, just to reiterate, if you were making around 90K in Denmark or around 80K in Germany, that's still a fairly respectable salary to have given the cost of living of these areas. So, next, the article talks about realistic salary progression for software engineers. So, how much should I expect to make after working in the field for 2 to 3 years, for example? So, the article actually does a great job here by dividing up the salary ranges based on years of experience as well as the type of company that you're employed by. And I think this table here is really the one that sheds the most light upon how much a software engineer actually makes. So here they define mid-level as 1.5 to 3 years of experience and senior level to around an additional 3 to 5 years, which translates to, I would say, a maximum of around 8 years of experience for yourself to be considered a senior level. And a senior position requiring around 5, 6 to even 8 years of experience. So typically, as a junior developer, you should expect to make around 60K, 70K, or even 80K in some companies, with the notable exception of FANG companies offering a staggering 150K for junior developers. Of course, FANG companies offer an entire compensation package, which includes a salary plus stock options. So that's why these figures typically are so staggeringly large. So after around 1.5 to 3 years of experience, you should find yourself making around 80K to possibly even around 105, 110K on average, with again the notable exception of FANG companies making around 250K. And lastly, a senior engineer should expect to make around 110K, maybe even 120, 130, or even possibly 140, again, based on your location and the company that you're working for. And lastly, FANG companies offer a staggering 350K annual salary for senior software engineers. So here the article starts getting into what exactly is considered a respectable starting salary if you're a brand new software engineer and you've just been hired for a junior developer position. So here they get into the fact that a 70K starting salary may seem respectable for some people while outrageous for others. Now, my take on this is that you really shouldn't focus too much on the salary that you receive as a junior level developer, simply because within 1 to 2 years, you should typically find yourself out of that junior category and into the mid-level range, which of course translates into making a significantly higher salary, well within that mid-level range that we saw earlier. So somebody who gets hired with, let's say, a 70K starting salary may find themselves within 2 years making 90K, possibly even 100K. I wouldn't worry too much about the initial salary that you get as a junior developer. It's far more important to get your foot through the door first so that the opportunities open up. Once your foot is through the door, it's much easier to build up experience and to build up a respectable resume of work experience so that you'll be able to either climb up the corporate ladder in the company that you're working on or find a new position as a mid-level or even senior developer with a significantly higher starting salary that corresponds to your level of experience. Next, they go on to mention how salaries, of course, can be considered more valuable in certain locations, which, of course, they're referring to the cost of living of your place of residence. For example, 80K a year will take you significantly farther in a place such as Nebraska as opposed to a place such as San Francisco. You want to optimize your salary with your place of residence and its respective cost of living. And the article goes on to hint at this as well, stating that making around 60K euros per year would actually be considered a respectable salary in a place like Portugal, for example. So if you were to find the opportunity to have the luxury of working remotely in a place with a lower cost of living while working for a company that provides you with a respectable yearly salary, you'd actually be able to find yourself in a very comfortable living situation. Next, the article gets a bit into the salaries that FANG companies offer as opposed to tech and non-tech companies. So, of course, FANG companies are really well known for their top tier salaries and compensation packages, which again is based on the fact that they are the top software companies in the world and they have the luxury of being able to offer stock options as part of their compensation package. So if you're able to make it into one of these FANG companies, you would actually find yourself making around 180K as a junior developer, around 250 as a mid-level, and around 350 as a senior level. And the article goes on to state that the salary ceiling is actually exceptionally high for FANG companies. And if you can achieve seniority, you would find yourself making a lot of money. They go on to cite a bunch of numbers in this table here. But of course, I think the silver lining is that getting into one of these companies is a great challenge in and of itself. Competition is incredibly fierce, and it's easy to see why. But you should know that it's also possible to make a respectable living working at a bunch of other companies as well. You're not limited to only FANG companies. Here they list a bunch of figures from a collection of different companies. Here they give an average mid-level software engineering salary of 178K for Adobe, 137K for IBM, 127K for Swisscom in Switzerland, 113K for Deliveroo in the UK, 74K for SAP in Germany, 81K for N26 in Germany, and lastly 72K in Ericsson, Sweden. And they go on to state that even non-tech companies can offer great salaries to their software engineers as well, with JP Morgan Chase offering 135, Visa offering average of 126, and then a bunch of other companies offering decent salaries as well. So I think it's safe to say that working as a software engineer in 2024 is still an opportunity for you to earn a great living while maintaining a comfortable work-life balance in many places of the world. It also gives you the luxury of working in a hybrid fashion where you don't have to go to work every day and sometimes even fully remote. And with salaries like these that often exceed the median household income for many, many places in the United States and even in Europe, it's understandable why many people want to get into the world of software engineering. Now, if making this kind of money sounds great to you and the idea of having the work-life balance and the perks of working in software sounds like something that you'd want to pursue, I'm actually offering a course on how to get into the world of software engineering. This course will teach you on how to learn the skills needed to get into the world of software, and it will give you the background and fundamentals needed to land that first software engineering position. And it will give you the essentials and fundamentals that a lot of folks won't know until they start working in the software industry. That way, you can actually train yourself and learn what you need to learn to land that first software engineering job. You can find out more information by going to my website, techstackers.io, and checking out my course there. I'm continuing to enjoy the many perks of working in the software industry myself. And the article actually goes on to mention some of these perks, in particular, working remotely. Now, the article actually does give you a grounded perspective here, and it states that the industry is typically divided up into fully in office work, hybrid work, where you have to go into the office around 2 to 3 days per week, and fully remote work. Now, as much as fully remote work sounds great and all, there are actually some downsides. Now, of course, there are some trade offs with the various options here. In particular, the fact that some of the companies that offer fully remote work will actually take your place of residence into consideration and may scale up or down your salary based on the cost of living of your place of residence. In addition, there's also the downside of barriers to higher compensation for fully remote roles. This one person on Reddit actually states that working remotely isn't just a barrier to high compensation, but also the fact that somebody working remotely their whole career is just way less likely to achieve the highest level of compensation. And this could be due to a variety of factors, including internal workplace policies, as well as fewer opportunities to do networking with management and other employees in the business. But overall, I would argue that working remotely is still a great perk to have in majority of cases, especially considering the work-life balance you can maintain while having a fully remote position. And there you have it. So in summary, I would say that on average, you would find yourself making somewhat more than the median household income based on the area that you live in. And of course, you'd also be enjoying the perks of working in tech as well. Thanks for watching.